Hello, fellow Auraxians. Planetside recently got a big patch, and I'm here to give you a rundown. Let's cover some of the little details first, because there were some key tiny adjustments that were made, and then we'll dive into the meat of this patch. Players battle rank 15 and lower will no longer have to deal with content queues. This is something that's been requested for a while, and it's a really terrific move. No new player that's really excited and figuring out the game wants to sit around for a queue. Another long-awaited fix is the squad promote me command now works in all squads. And they went a step further and made it bindable in the settings. This is a good move. A lot of people already created a macro for this, but this is going to be a powerful feature for sustaining in difficult fights. And by making it bindable, it will be accessible to a more casual player that won't really know how to make a mouse macro. Doku's C4 trigger is now in the game, so you definitely feel more badass using that. And C4 is no longer an instant trigger, so you do again have a chance defending yourself from a light assault. Another long requested feature that's finally been added is your vehicle abilities now have a timer showing up on your HUD. So if, for example, you trigger fire suppression, you will now have a timer that lets you know when it will be ready again. In my limited testing, it did not show up when I was scoped only in third-person mode. The patch notes say that should be otherwise, so expect that to be fixed soon. They've added a feature where now when you complete an alert, the Bastion fleet carriers descend from the sky to join the fight. JK guys, no, really it's just a hilarious bug. But it is kind of fun to see that they do have some collision physics. Not with characters, but with the terrain. So we're getting closer and closer to the potential of those things becoming part of the battles on Auraxius. Motion blur can again be toggled from the settings screen. I settled on running with it off, but just know it's available if you like that. On top of all that, there was a lot of little fixes in this. You now get notified if you're made the squad leader. They made a few changes to the lattice here and there. They made some adjustments to vehicle weapons, and they adjusted the Prowler's faction-specific ability. All Prowlers now have deploy for a projectile speed increase, and they can select barrage as an ability that works while they're moving for a reload speed increase. And they fixed some terrain traps. A lot of important but very minor stuff. Let's move on to the big deal. They finally made some adjustments to the meta. The overarching goal of the changes was to try to remove construction from the meta objectives of the game and make it something that would just be fun to play on its own. It could just assist in whatever objective you're trying to work towards rather than be the objective, which is 100% the right direction to take construction. With that said, Hives have been removed from the game. Everyone rejoice. We've made it back to 2016. No, in all seriousness, Hives just haven't worked in the meta play. They were shoehorned into the meta via the VP system a long time ago to really make construction relevant, but they were just never really able to provide engaging gameplay. I see so much potential for construction being part of the meta play. Hives just didn't fulfill any of that. And it's been going on for 2 years now, so it's really exciting to finally get those kind of meta changes. And the second big exciting part of this patch is the double team alerts. The critical mass alerts have been removed from the game. We finally made it back to 2017. The traditional 90-minute winner-take-all alerts have been reinstated. I want to point out that I don't like these alerts. These alerts were put in the game originally at 2 hours as the first sort of semblance of something beyond just shooting each other, the first sort of objective or meta that Planetside ever had. And they always felt like a Phase 1. But as bare bones and basic as just the traditional territory capture alerts are, they are head and shoulders above the critical mass alerts. So it is quite a relief to have them back, and we will just have to look for a Phase 2 on them in the future. Last Wednesday Night Ops was the first alert in 2018 that I was actually looking at the map, very tense, seeing where population was moving, seeing what was happening on the map, really paying attention to the meta and try to figure out how to win the alert. I can see some platoon leaders are pretty rusty on these old alerts. I think it's going to be a long time before people settle back into actually playing these alerts seriously, so don't expect the double teaming to go away immediately. But it should alleviate it a little bit, and if we can re-attract any of those leaders that we lost over the last 6 months, you'll start seeing some better alert play. Those are the major takeaways from the changes. Let's dive into the nitty-gritty. The old school 90-minute winner-take-all alerts are now the end of continent alerts. Whoever wins that locks the continent. Again, that's back to before even the VP system, when the winner of the alert locked the continent. But they have added mini events that will happen during the continent before the end of continent alert. One of those is they brought back facility alerts. This is something I have seen requested so many times, and to be honest, I don't understand it. I give DBG major props for listening to the community here, so I think it's good that they did it, but I think people sort of forgot how these alerts didn't really work. The ones that did sort of work were the cross-continent facility alerts, where you had to capture biolabs across multiple continents. People are forgetting, though, that we don't have the population levels to sustain that type of alert to come back right now. So these facility alerts are based on just one continent, and the single continent facility alerts just don't really work. You're going to see a lot of draws pop up in these alerts, but it doesn't detract from the game at all having these alerts, even though they're just kind of a placeholder. But even the draws hand out a whole bunch of ISO, that is 3 implants.
Ooh, I got robotics technician on that one. I've been wanting that.
And I think that carrot will cause people to really like these alerts, even though it doesn't really improve the meta play at all. What this alert really is a placeholder for something like the aerial anomaly event. The aerial anomaly event is the new, I'm going to use the word original because the facility alerts recycled from an old type of alert. The new original mini event. These things are a laggy, unbalanced, messy disaster, and it is the greatest thing to happen to the game in a long time. This is what I was always waiting for in the VP system. When the VP system got released, they were so focused on just trying to get the construction system onto live and rationalize it in the meta, they put zero effort into the other ways to earn victory points on the continents. And that's how you ended up with all these crappy systems like Zerg to the enemy warp gate for 1 VP. That is a terrible, terrible objective. Not only is it unimaginative, but it's actually bad for the battle flow in the game. Things like the aerial anomaly event are how victory points should have been generated. Over the course of the continent, you fight over a bunch of little mini events, and finally someone reaches the victory point threshold. That faction calls in your Bastion fleet carriers, and you have one big final alert. Anyways, back to these aerial anomalies. Yes, they are very rough around the edges right now. The first night, the stability around the anomalies was terrible. It felt like that has already been improved drastically. The second night, it was still bad, but not nearly as bad. The key thing that these aerial anomalies represent is ambition in development. And that's something that's always been a struggle. The team shrunk down and they haven't really been able to tackle the fact that we don't have an endgame in Planetside. So just the fact that we're starting to take this on and try to improve that is a big development. They're also great because aircraft in general have never really been able to truly participate. Yes, they can support things, they can take out tanks, they can take out Sunderers, but now aircraft are the ones that are actually generating the points to win the alert. It gets people into the sky, and it gets them into the sky in a good scenario where it's not a few ace pilots just wiping out all the new players, kind of 1v1. They're big, hectic, messy battles that newer pilots can sort of hide and blend into without getting shredded by that ace pilot that finds them 1v1. And massive air battles really put the glory of Planetside on display. It's a really great idea. So just so you know, guys, if you're playing one of these black hole-ish things pop up around the map, your goal is, you can see all these white wispy lines that are connecting me and other aircraft to the anomaly. As long as you are that close that you get those lines, you are generating points for your faction. And whoever reaches 10,000 points first, these numbers are subject to change. Whoever reaches that threshold first wins the mini event, and you get some implants. It's a little unbalanced right now. One of the anomalies pops up right near Rashnu Biolab, which is skewed heavily in favor of whatever faction has that warp gate. The first one I was in, the NC controlled that and they dominated it. The next time that alert came up on indoor, TR had that warp gate and we completely dominated it. But these are things that can be adjusted and fixed as time goes on. It was certainly rushed out the door, but it's just great that the meta is actually being worked on. The other big takeaway I got from this patch is just how much more willing players are willing to suffer through the problems with the game for actual development. As patches go, this was a really bad one. It wasn't tested well, it was very buggy, but I didn't see anyone really that upset with it. They were just so excited that we actually got some positive change that everyone kind of took it in stride. So something to think about: if a patch is going to be rushed to a game, make it a development patch rather than a monetization patch. And then bouncing over to construction. So they've made the move away from construction being crammed into meta, which is great. Construction's shifting in the direction like, hey, you'd pull a prowler maybe to get this job done, or you would put up a base to get something else done over here. They made a lot of adjustments to construction. A lot of them aren't really consequential or impactful. So let's cover some of the key things. They fixed the bug where skywall shields light you on fire forever by just removing skywall shields lighting you on fire, and now they just EMP you. That's a great change. They removed the nanite cost for pulling vehicles from bases. If an outfit wants to do some sort of vehicle ops and they don't want to have to worry about nanites, they can spend a few minutes getting a base set up and then pull everything from that base and not have to worry about people running out of resources. They reduced the initial cordium cost of a lot of modules just so bases go up quicker. And they made the ant weapon siege weapons so you can use your regular mining laser to tear down walls or tear down silos or pillboxes and whatnot. So some interesting changes there. The big impactful things they did to construction were things like removing the no launch zone for orbital strikes. If it's in range, you can orbital strike it. I think this is a good change. They added something called the flail as well, and it's a pain to use because you can't launch it into the no build zones. I don't think the idea behind launching into bases is fully flushed out yet, but I think it's good to go in that direction. The goal in trying to balance this is they're supposedly removing damage from orbital strikes as long as you're in buildings, which is great. You should be able to have a way to find cover. The problem is you still take damage from the momentum that the orbital strikes cause. I like the idea of someone playing support being able to disrupt the battles, do a large EMP, kind of bounce people around, black out people's screens for a little bit. But it should be very easy to survive as long as you just get in the building. You're going to watch me here get orbital striked 3 times in a row. The last thing we need is what is more effectively area effect high explosive damage in bases. Hesh lightnings are bad enough as it is. And if orbital strikes end up being the same thing, maybe they don't cause you direct damage, but just cause you to get blasted into the air and die that way, it just ends up ruining the infantry fights a little bit more. If we can get the orbital strikes where they are just more of a support role rather than a killing role in the bases, then I think it can be an interesting addition. But as it stands, it's going to get old real fast that every time you roll up to a base, there's going to be 4 or 5 orbital strikes going off. And the next big change that came with construction are router pads. More resilient spawn points for attackers has been a problem since the game launched. So adding some better ways for attackers to set up places to spawn from is a great idea. I can't tell what I think about them yet. I'm not too worried about them being overpowered, to be honest. I think they can very easily be nerfed by increasing the spawn time from them, but I don't want them to be nerfed to the point that they're functionless. And my fear is the fact that you can place them anywhere may lead them to be over-nerfed in the future. And again, jumping to how you acquire them through construction. It adds a barrier to get them so they are not ubiquitous throughout the continent. They just need to play out on live for a while and then we'll see where they should go. So for those that want to take part in playing them out in live, here's what you need to do. This is me from my deploy screen, and I'm the router guy for my platoon right now. I set down a silo and I built myself 3 things. An Elysium spawn tube to spawn from that I bound myself to, a routing spire that I can pull my routers from, and an aircraft terminal. And my first Mosquito loadout is always racer chassis, extended afterburners, and ejection seat. That means from the spawn screen, I have a router and I can be anywhere on the map within 30 seconds. And remember, the Mosquito no longer costs me nanites. It's just part of the cordium resources. So I am in no way handicapped in terms of grenades or restoration kits. From there, you can get as creative as you want where you put your router. I do kind of like that it will mean the flow of attackers will not just emanate from the standard Sunderer spawn points. The flow of attackers could come from anywhere. Any corner of the base, any room could come from high or low. It really has the potential to change the micro flow through these bases. At the same time, it has a whole lot of potential to throw the balance of fights out of whack whoever has a spawn point right on the point of a base. Just how powerful a router is will scale with how far away you can park a Sunderer. On bases where Sunderers are far away, the router will massively improve the chance of the attackers. And bases where the Sunderers can get pretty close to the A point, the longer spawn time for a router will mean they're not that useful for that base. Now, if only routers could fix all the Hesh spam, then we'd really be in great shape. Nah, but for real, we're just gonna have to let it play out in live for a little bit. If it reduces the overall defenses to successful attacks ratio, I think it will be doing its job. And if it goes too far, they can dial it back a bit. That covers most of the big changes, guys. Other thing to note is the battle rifles from Doku are released. I'm not going to spend too much time on them right now because I do intend to do a full review of the Dragoon when I get the chance. Guys, I get a lot of requests for the other faction flavors. I apologize, I just can't afford them on my NC and VS characters, and I just don't have enough time to farm up the 1500 certs that I need in order to fully kit up one of those weapons and do a complete review. Guys, the overall takeaway is that this was a patch that really focused on giving the players what they've been asking for a very long time. Some of it was meta changes, some of it was quality of life changes. It was just good to see a whole bunch of changes that was really based on player feedback. All of the new events have also really scaled up how easy it is to earn ISO. So I think a lot of people will be really pleased with that. I'm concerned that it might actually be starting to get too easy for veteran players to earn ISO. While I think it's really important to flood players with ISO that are under 10 million experience, so they have some ability to try to catch up to us veterans, I worry about them speeding the gain up too much for people like me. That being said, I think the next big patch is another round of implants, so speeding the ISO gain up in preparation for how huge the implant pool will be at that point is probably a really good move. The big change that I was really hoping would drop at this time was the fact that both Nick and Rel have hinted at that they may shift gaining implants away from being RNG or lottery only. I think that's the last big barrier we have right now from really being able to hit the promotion of this game hard. It makes sense that they're waiting till the next round of implants to make those changes so they can really think about implants holistically at that time, but I don't think that change can come soon enough. So hopefully that is indeed what they've been hinting on and that drops soon, and then we can officially say that you don't have to buy loot crates to participate in the implants. Okay, fellow Auraxians, that's your update on where Planetside is since the most recent patch. Please leave your thoughts and feedback below on all the changes, what you like, what you don't like, and where you want to see things going. As always, I really appreciate your continued support, whether you're just watching, or you're sharing, or getting the word out about it, or just smashing that like button. That's all I have for you for now. And until next time, I will see you Planetside.